This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up, and welcome to QnA, the show where I take your questions from YouTube, Twitter, and everywhere above and answer them in video format. If you want to make sure your questions get onto this show, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you can be notified when I put out the community prompt on Fridays so you can get your questions eligible for the show. First question is from Mar, and Mar says, hey Q, the Bengals and the Eagles had 4 wins and 9 wins respectively the year before they made the Super Bowl. That's a big jump between 4 and 9. Both teams added a star wide receiver in that year. Do you feel like the Browns could also fit this trend of dark horse contender? Keep up the great show. Yeah, I don't know if that's the most honest portrayal of what happened with those two teams, because the Bengals didn't go from 4 wins to 10 or 11, however many wins they had the year they went to the Super Bowl, because they added Jamar Chase. He was helpful in that, but it was the evolution of Joe Burrow, right? When it comes to the Eagles, they didn't make that jump strictly just because they added A.J. Brown. It was the evolution of Jalen Hurts that allowed them to do those things. So while I think it's possible for the Browns, I think the focus on adding a star wide receiver is kind of misplaced, and it kind of ignores what we know to be the obvious in the NFL. We've seen this before. Andrew Luck goes and jumps onto a team that won 1 game before him, and the next thing you know, they're in the AFC Championship game. Quarterbacks change your fortunes. Quarterback play changes your fortunes. Think about the Browns' only 2 years of relative success since expansion. You know it's not a coincidence. Those are the 2 years they got decent quarterback play, right? Derek Carr in 2007 and Baker Mayfield in 2020, right? Those 2 were the best years of those guys' respective careers. They put together the best numbers of those guys' respective careers, and the Browns had the most success. Success tends to follow improved quarterback play in the NFL. It's really cut and dry. You can add all the wide receivers you want. 2019, the Browns added Odell Beckham. Baker Mayfield didn't play well. And remember, this was Odell Beckham in his prime that they added, and the Browns stunk. It's not about adding a star wide receiver. I don't think that's where the focus should be. I think it's on the quarterback play. So if DeShaun Watson comes here and lights it up, it looks like the old DeShaun Watson, we're going to probably be good. If DeShaun Watson does not play well, we're going to probably struggle a little bit. But that's what it's on. We can't make it about anything other than that. Like, there's going to be other things that affect it, right? There's going to be coaching stuff, injuries, all that. Like, I get it. But at the end of the day, if DeShaun Watson plays well, you're going to be able to rise above those things. If we're succumbing to the excuses of the circumstances around us, that's because the quarterback's not playing good enough. I said that in 2021 when people were giving me a bunch of flack for saying that, hey, if Baker Mayfield wants to prove that he's a franchise guy, he kind of has to rise above and be better than some of these circumstances around him. He can't always succumb to the circumstances and always be full of these excuses if we want him to be a franchise quarterback, because the fact is that the franchise quarterbacks don't succumb to the excuses. They overcome them. He was not an overcomer. That's why the Browns decided to move on. You're going to have to overcome some level of discomfort during the NFL season in order to win. You're going to have to overcome some level of adversity to be successful in the NFL. So I know I got far away from the original question, but yeah, it basically is going to be on the quarterback. And if your quarterback's great, we're not talking about all the other things. Think about Pat Mahomes. And this is the last thing I'll say on that, so I can finally move on to the next question. But think about Pat Mahomes. All the things that went wrong for Pat Mahomes in the playoffs. It didn't matter. Why? Because he's Pat Mahomes. Oh, his ankle's hurt. Oh, he twisted it right before the Super Bowl. Oh, this guy's not here. Here's no Tyreek Hill. This guy's out. Didn't matter. Pat Mahomes rose above it. Mediocre quarterbacks don't really achieve much. Good quarterbacks can't rise above the circumstances, and great quarterbacks can rise above it. If you have a great quarterback who can rise above the circumstances, your chances of winning the Super Bowl have improved greatly because your ability to defeat adversity is great, which means obviously you're going to have a better chance of winning. Sean Wyatt says, what's up, Q? What are your thoughts on Elijah Moore lining up in the backfield? I think it's going to be really exciting this year. I hope this isn't one of those things that we see in minicamp. Everybody gets excited about, and then like they only run it a handful of times because they were only planning on running it a handful of times, and then everybody gets mad that they don't run it more, and then it just becomes like this weird thing. Like I really, really hope that that's not what happens with this whole Elijah Moore lining up in the backfield. To me, I don't think this is going to be the basis of the offense. I don't think this is going to be the foundation of what they're going to do with Elijah Moore. And I don't think they're going to use him exactly like the San Francisco 49ers have used somebody like Deebo Samuel, strictly because as good as I think Elijah Moore could be in this offense, I don't think he's Deebo Samuel. I think that's a ridiculous expectation to put on him. It's too high. Too high. So I fear that when you do stuff like that early in camp, people are going to run away with their imagination, and they're going to expect Elijah Moore to be Deebo or expect the Browns to use him like Deebo. And then we're going to be having these arguments all year. And I'm just saying, hey, it would be a cool wrinkle to have to throw him in the backfield. You know, not every game, maybe once or twice in a specific game plan. Maybe he does it 10 or 12 times the whole season. You know, I don't know. Yeah, I kind of have to wait to see him in the season, him in this offense, him in like regulation games before I get carried away about any wrinkle that they're adding with him. But it is something that I think they're going to at least run once this year. Jabreakit says, hey, Q, great content. Do you think Moore has a realistic chance to get 1,000 yards? I think so. I think it's possible for him. I don't know if it's likely, but I would say it's possible, right? I think that's fair enough to say. Logan says, what players do you think will be gone after this season? Amari Cooper, maybe DPJ, maybe Jack Conklin. I think that's probably it. Maybe Nick Chubb. It depends on what the contract situation is for him. But as far as this year, all those guys are going to be on the team. Another question from Jabreakis says, do you think the Browns will make any more No, I'm not answering that question. What mark is it? 740. Okay, remember it's 740. This next question is from Wally Ahmad, who says, okay, Q, we've seen the schedule, so we understand who we play and when we play. With that being said, how many games do you think will go before you personally start to worry about DeShaun if he's underperforming? For me, I say 6. Now, there are 2 answers to this question. There's the answer that I'm going to have, and then there's the answer that other people going to have. The fact is, if DeShaun Watson does not come out in week 1 and play well, there are going to be people who panic. My answer to this isn't going to be a hard set number for DeShaun, because the answer to this is contextual, which means it depends on what we see. And it depends on what we're considering a bad game or what we're considering a rust, right? This whole idea that we're just going to be able, like, DeShaun's not going to run out there with visible rust. And when I say visible rust, I mean literally like visible rust. So we're not going to be able to track it and be like, oh, it's week 7. He still has rust on his arm. This is going to be something that we feel, right? And no matter if his issues are resulting because of rust or not, I feel like there's going to be some faction of the fan base that's going to blame everything bad on the rust. So I don't think, to me, it's not about, oh, he's underperforming. It's about what's the context of the game. Is he underperforming statistically, but playing well and helping the team win? Is he overperforming statistically, but I don't feel like it's in a way that's really helpful to this team's victory? Like, That can't be said before the season and putting some hard fast, oh, it's 4 weeks for me, because the context is so important in that conversation, right? What does he look like? How is he playing? What is he struggling with? Is it timing? Is it what defenses are doing to him? Is he physically not holding up? You see, all of these questions you have to ask before you can really get to a real answer of should you be worried about this or not comes up. And I don't think you could just say, hey, 2 weeks in, if he's not putting up this and that, then I'm worried, because I can't tell you the context ahead of time. That's why you got to watch the games. So I'm reserving my judgment on that to be contextual. So I'm not going to say until I see, and I'm going to reserve there's no point of being first with any of that. All right. The next question comes from Ashton, who says, is there any reason the Browns should pursue Hopkins? How do you think Za'Darius and Ogbo will split time? Okay. Is there any reason the Browns should pursue DeAndre Hopkins? Yes, he's DeAndre Hopkins, and he's still very good. Now, that doesn't mean you do it and spend all the money in the world, but that is a reason to do it. Like there is a section of people that love the status quo of the Browns offense so much for whatever reason. And I think this is just because people in general just like status quo and don't like shaking it up a little bit, even though a lot of the times it's better for you. That to the point to where like they're willing to lie to themselves about certain things. And like, I think you're lying to yourself if you don't think DeAndre Hopkins is still good. Like, yeah, last year he wasn't great, but the quarterback play was terrible. And the year before he was really good. Also, look at how Kyler Murray's numbers jumped once he got DeAndre Hopkins. He's still a really good receiver. So should the Browns pursue DeAndre Hopkins? Is there a reason? Yes. The reason is he's DeAndre Hopkins. He's proven that he could be one of the best receivers in the league, and he's not that old. Does that mean they will? I don't know. Does that mean somebody should be fired or they don't get him? No. Right? But there's obviously a reason. Like, I don't think that's a question. And how was Za'Darius and Ogbo split time? I mean, it's not Madden, right? You can put these guys on the field together at the same time. They're not splitting time. I think they play on the defensive line, but they play different roles on the defensive line. Za'Darius Smith is more of an every down rusher. Same thing with Myles Garrett. And Ogbo was always going to be a specialist. Somebody who comes in there on special packages. Sometimes they line him up at linebacker at like the Mike position and have him blitz from there. Sometimes they put him all the way out at edge. Sometimes they use him for an overload. He was always going to be a specialist. And that's why I think they felt like they needed to pursue somebody like Za'Darius to be another anchor on that other side opposite of Myles Garrett. I think a lot of people misunderstood his role on the team. Not saying it won't be significant. And I remember people getting mad at me when I said this at first. Oh, you're underestimating Ogbo. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm just telling you what the role is. And the role is he's a specialist. Not a special teamers, but a specialist on the defensive line, which means, Za'Darius and Myles, they're going to be out there most downs. But Ogbo, he's not necessarily a backup. He's somebody who's going to have his own packages. He's somebody who's going to be put in specific situations for him to thrive. Think about it like a juiced up version of Takk McKinley and how they used him that one year, but hopefully better. But that's kind of the role that they envision for him. The next question comes from Jason P, who says, is there a reason we shouldn't pursue Dalvin Cook? He was a part of Stefanski's offense when the Vikings made it to the NFC Championship. And I feel like that's not a step back from Kareem Hunt. Just as far as catching out the backfield, there's no guarantee Ford is at the point to where we need him to be to get us at the next level. I don't think it's that important, man. I just don't. We're upping the amount of receivers that are getting targets, which means the amount of running backs that are going to get rushing attempts is just going to go down. There's only so many plays you can run on offense. And when it comes to the run game, it's basically going to be mainly Nick Chubb and then sprinkling somebody else. I know that the last few years, when we did not have quarterback play that was sufficient, we have used the dual threat of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb to win games. The hope this year is that you could win games from the quarterback position and win games with Nick Chubb. I don't think they're trying to get another tandem back there. I really don't. So No, I don't think they're going to pick up Dalvin Cook. And honestly, Dalvin Cook's name brand has not matched up with his output. Like, he's had 1 year at 5, another year at 4.7 yards per carry, but then he's really dipped below that 4.5 mark to some pretty pedestrian 4.4 numbers when it comes to yard per carry. So like, he's not the most efficient running back, and he's not even a great fit to put in the spot that the Browns are going to put him in. Like, just let Jerome Ford play, y'all. I don't think it's going to kill us. I really don't think it's going to kill us. I know you want a big name, and we want the biggest names possible, but it's not going to kill us to let some young guys play, right? It really isn't. And we're not asking any young guys to take the big role. That's why I'm not super crazy about like going after DeAndre Hopkins, even though I understand he's good. It's like, yeah, DeAndre's good, and we could use DeAndre. But if we don't have DeAndre and there's an injury, we still got DPJ. We still got Cedric Tillman. We still got David Bell we can give some love to. Like, there are guys there that we have hopes for being better that you could put in the game that you have to be able to trust are going to be able to play well in those situations. Same thing with Jerome Ford. Like, if Jerome Ford, we ain't never going to feel good about Jerome Ford if we don't ever let him play. Imagine if we did this with Nick Chubb. Oh man, I don't know about Nick Chubb. I don't know about him. I don't know if he's going to be able to take this role. So we better sign Carlos Hyde for another deal. And we better keep Duke Johnson so we don't ever have to run Nick Chubb. Because I don't know what Nick Chubb, like, let him play. Let's find out. Let's find out if Jerome Ford's good. If he's not, I promise you there will be a running back available. It's not that deep. With wide receiver, I kind of get the other side of that argument, because wide receivers in the middle of the season are hard to find. You don't find very many starting quality wide receivers in the middle of the season. That cannot be said for running backs. If you need a running back in the middle of the season, you could get somebody. You get somebody. I promise you, you can get somebody in the middle of the season. So there's that. And that's it for this week's questions. Y'all have a great day. Have a better one.